Creatine is this incredible longevity supplement. It's antidepressant, anti-anxiety. There's now data that is suggesting that it may have some anti-cancer effects. It's good for the brain. We know it's good for muscle, good for bone. Seems to be good for your organs.
High dose creatine improved cognition for sufferers with Alzheimer's disease.
So I'd say creatine for everybody.
Training and nutrition tips for men in their mid-40s with sedentary office jobs.
Well, the best thing you can do is break up your day with a little bit of activity. You don't need a lot, just little bits of activity throughout the day. And so what this would look like for someone who's working at a desk is every other hour, you would stand up and maybe go for a 5-minute walk or 10-minute walk or do some stretching or something like that. So that's number one. Number two, diet-wise, avoid heavily processed foods. In my experience training people, the average person who's overweight typically loses between 10 to 15 pounds just from doing that. The best investment somebody could make in regards to workouts is working with a really good trainer. It's the best thing you could do. If you meet with a trainer and they don't do like an assessment where they assess your movement, they assess biomechanics, that's a red flag. So if you meet with a trainer first time and you go right into a workout, big red flag. If you feel better at the end of your workout than you did before you started, that's great. If you feel worse, what I mean by that is like you're crawling out of the gym and you can't walk, that's a red flag.
If you could only pick and perform 5 exercises for the rest of your life, what would they be? Sal Di Stefano, what up?
Hey.
There are not many people that I will willingly, happily record an episode at 8:30 in the morning with, but you are probably the only one.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for coming out.
Thanks. I know it's last minute, and so every time I'm out here, I'm like, see if Max wants to hang out. So.
Yeah, we got the email. They were like, Sal's in town. You willing to record at 8:30 in the morning with him? I was like, hell yeah.
Appreciate that, man. I really appreciate that.
Not even a nanosecond of hesitation. Well, so what I did for this episode was I polled my fantastic Instagram audience for questions. Okay. I said that we have the GOAT coming in. He is like the oracle of all things training, fitness, and nutrition. And what questions do you have for him? So I've got some really good ones. And my audience, I'm just going to like give you a heads up in advance. I've got a really savvy audience.
Of course.
Super smart.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And they don't mind getting a little in the weeds, but they are super inquisitive, super curious, and super passionate about all the things that you talk about.
Okay,
so,
all right.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So the first question comes from Jemmy Maka. I don't know how to pronounce her name, but the question is, training and nutrition tips for men in their mid-40s with sedentary office jobs, asking for my husband.
That's a lot. It's a significant percentage of people are sedentary just because of the way that work is now. And mid-40s poses a lot of different challenges, responsibilities, kids, my body doesn't move the way it used to, maybe hormone issues. But I love this question because, well, there's a couple things. One, everybody wants to know, and forgive me for taking a little while here, everybody wants to know how to get to the goal or the result. But the real problem that we have to look at is how do I get to a place and then stay there? So for example, losing 30 pounds is hard. But if you look at the data, it's actually harder to keep the 30 pounds off later on. So whatever the percentage of people that can lose 30 pounds, a tiny percentage of them can keep it off. So you want to view your goal or your fitness and health through that lens. So not just how can I get to the result, but how can I stay there long term? So it's got to be something manageable, and we have to slowly over time develop this kind of behavior and skill around it. So I'll start with this. Sedentary job, one of the best things you could do with a sedentary job is not schedule these crazy hard workouts to try to make up for being sedentary. One of the best things you could do is break up your day with a little bit of activity. It doesn't require, you don't need a lot, just little bits of activity throughout the day. And so what this would look like for someone who's working at a desk is every other hour, you would stand up and maybe go for a 5-minute walk or 10-minute walk or do some stretching or something like that. And the data shows your productivity is improved, insulin sensitivity is improved. And it's not a big calorie burn, but you tend to feel better, which tends to result in better behaviors later on. When we feel crappy, we tend to make worse food choices. We don't do as well at work. You just don't have as much energy. So every couple hours, you could set like a silent alarm on your phone, stand up, go for a 5-minute walk, 10-minute walk, come back, go back to work. It's like one of the best things you could possibly do. In fact, there's a study, you brought this up a while ago, where they showed people literally just flexing their, just doing little mini calf raises while they were seated, and you saw an improvement in blood sugar. And so it's like, a lot of people think I have to really beat myself up to get these significant results, and that's not really true. So just get up and move, I would say, every other hour. So that's number one. Number two, there's two ways you can approach strength training. One is to do maybe, let's say, a full body workout once or twice a week. That's great. The other way would be to do like 1 or 2 exercises a day. Okay, so essentially it's the same total volume. So you're doing about the same amount of sets and exercises. One way is a little every day. The other way is essentially a lot, but less frequent. And I'll tell people it's based off of your preferences. Now, what we've experienced at Mind Pump is that the little bit every day tends to result in better adherence and better overall accumulated volume. What I mean by that is if you have 2 workouts a week, if you miss one, boom, half of your training volume is gone. When people tend to do 1 or 2 lifts a day, if they miss 1 or 2, it's like 10%. What is that? 1/7 or whatever of their total volume. So it tends to result in overall more activity. And so what that would look like is, today I'm doing 3 or 4 sets of deadlifts. Tomorrow I'm doing 3 or 4 sets of an overhead press. And so every day you do 1 or 2 exercises. Typically it's a compound lift with a single joint lift. And you just do that daily. And there's your strength training. So you got your little bit of activity, your sedentary, your strength training. And then it's a good idea to have at least a few longer duration, bouts of activity, long walks, hikes, something like that. So there's your fitness. And you don't need a lot. If you actually look at the data with strength training, 3 days a week, full body will get you about 85% of all the results you could ever expect from strength training.
3 days a week, full body.
Yeah, that's like if you looked at the total potential of what you could accomplish with strength training over your lifetime, 3 days a week will get you 85% of the way there.
Wow.
Adding more, you get diminishing returns. 2 days a week, you're about 75% of the way there, which most people I think are super happy with.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So diet-wise, the basics like you and I have talked about so many times. I always hammer this home because it's so, in comparison to all the other things you could do, it's so simple, yet the downstream effects are so profound. Avoid heavily processed foods. I mean, just start there. In my experience training people, the average person who's overweight typically loses between 10 to 15 pounds just from doing that. Just doing that alone and not pay attention to even protein or macros. Just eat until I'm satisfied. Don't eat processed foods. You tend to get 10 to 15 pounds of body fat off your body over a period of time. And I'd say just start there. If you want to add something else, try to hit your target body weight and protein, and then you're set.
What do you make of these the market has now been flooded with what are arguably ultra-processed foods, but ultra-processed foods that have been enriched with protein. I saw that Doritos is now coming out with a version of high-protein Doritos.
Yeah.
It blew my mind.
Yeah. Protein's a great macronutrient. There's benefits to it. I'd say a high-protein processed food is better than one that isn't, but you're still dealing with hyperpalatability. This is the main issue. The main issue is, can I eat in a way where I can trust my satiety signals? Are my satiety signals being hijacked? Am I going to overeat if I simply listen to my body? And when you eat processed foods, you probably will. And this includes high-protein processed. Now, they're probably better in that regard, but high-protein processed foods don't seem to be as palatable, I would say. Like a high-protein chip is probably not going to be as tasty, but it's still not going to produce satiety like some chicken breast or some beef or something like that. So I always look, and we're sponsored by supplement companies, and I always tell people use them only if you need to. Even protein shakes, if you hit your protein targets, save it for the end of the day if you missed, as a way to kind of add that extra protein. But otherwise, yeah. Now, if you need to snack or you're on a road trip, I'd say they're totally fine. But they're still in that category.
Yeah, but for convenience sake, I find them to be sometimes, and for novelty's sake, for just like breaking the boredom of like, you're not gonna. I mean, like hard-boiled eggs are great, but I mean they get old after a while,
sure
right?
do.
Like as a snack that you can like, and also they're not the most office-friendly snack.
No,
right? So
neither are sardines.
No, yeah, exactly. So I do feel like, and there was also a study that I've cited a couple times on the podcast that came out fairly recently that found that, ultra-processed as they may be, protein-enriched ultra-processed foods are less prone to, we overconsume them to lesser of a degree
Yes.
than ultra-processed foods that are not protein-enriched.
Yeah, there's the protein itself produces more satiety.
Yeah.
So that helps. That helps quite a bit.
But then you get into like the protein washing of ultra-processed foods.
Yeah.
Are ultra-processed foods that are parading as though they're legitimately high protein, actually high in protein. Then you get like the Pop-Tart.
Yeah, 8 grams of protein.
Yeah, 8 grams of protein in a 400 calorie or 300 calorie Pop-Tart.
No.
I'm like, what are you? You're just lying to consumers.
Yeah, 25 grams, I would say, would be considered high protein. And then as a percentage of the calories, if it's 1,000 calories with 25 grams of protein, then that's not the same thing. But it's funny. I'll see these foods, and it's like high protein. You look at the back, it's like 7 grams.
Yeah.
It's not really the same thing. I guess in comparison to 0, but it's not the same.
Exactly. Yeah, well, that was super helpful. Thanks for that. So, the next question is something that I think that many people are struggling with. It's a question that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. It comes from Ink and Cleaver, and the question is, they've stated that they're overwhelmed with online contradiction. The question is how to navigate and find the best program.
Gosh. So is this in terms of exercise and nutrition or both?
I think probably both. I mean, just the wellness, the deluge of wellness information today.
You do really well with this. You do such a good job of sifting through all of this. I just had this conversation with a friend of mine. Nutrition studies are really tough because so many of them are based off of surveys. So it's really hard to see like what. Now we have general ideas, but you see so much contradicting information. Like, this low carb here seems to be the best. So no, it's actually a diet that's higher in carbs and maybe a little lower fat. And no, it's these specific foods, and maybe not. Maybe it's these specific. And then there's carnivore. I can find studies that show carnivore improves, blood markers across the board. So there's a few general rules. One is if you overconsume, it tends to not be great. Now, what you overconsume does make a difference. But overconsuming in general, especially if you do it all the time, generally not good for you. Generally not good. If you eat an appropriate amount, or especially if you eat in a calorie deficit, now you can't stay in a calorie deficit forever, but in a calorie deficit, it's incredibly how forgiving it is on the body. And there's people that do these. They'll do these like self-studies, which I don't like because they're misleading, but they'll be like, I'm gonna eat McDonald's and show you that I'm gonna improve all my blood markers. And what they're doing is eating 1,500 calories. And so that's pretty forgiving. So there's that. So overconsumption, underconsumption, eating the right amount, that makes a big difference. You need essential fats. Fats make a difference. The kind of fats that you eat make a difference. They make up your, the cell membranes. They feed the brain. So you want to stick with natural fats. Saturated fats, for some people, don't seem to be that big of a deal. If you are sensitive to them, then you probably want to reduce your consumption. And I love the, where they differentiate the particle size of like LDL, HDL. And so that'll give you a more clear picture as to whether or not you need to manage that. I'm one of those people who can eat saturated fat till the cows come home, and I seem to have no, big negative effect. But I know some people, it's like they do everything right, but then they have to also do that part. Protein across the board. Now there's going to be individual variants. I've worked with people where too much protein, no matter how we put it together, they don't get the best gastro response. It seems to back them up, and so we'll back off. But generally speaking, high protein seems to be a good idea. Tends to build more muscle in combination, especially with some strength training. It tends to be protective. It produces satiety, so it helps with overconsumption. In older populations, even ones that don't exercise or strength train, higher protein diet seems to be protective for things like bone fracture and all that stuff. So higher protein, a good idea. Do you need to go as high as what bodybuilders would recommend? Probably not. But I would argue if you're really strength training and aiming for the benefits of building strength and muscle, then I would aim for those higher amounts. And then, okay, so what do I do with the food? What about the food that I eat? This is going to sound so silly, but it's like, eat kind of natural foods. You almost can't go wrong with just general natural foods. And then I base it off of preference from there. A diet that you hate is just not going to work. So go with things that you enjoy and stick with those kind of whole natural foods. So that's the diet part. And it could look within those parameters different from person to person. Someone could be like more Mediterranean. This person could be a little bit more meat centric. This person can be more fish centric. And you'll see, generally speaking, pretty good responses. Exercise wise, this is where it gets all. I'll say this, like here's a few things. One, if you're consistent with exercise, and let's say we look at a total year or 2 or 3 years, and you're doing it, and you're not missing, and you're pretty consistent. 90% of the time, your workouts should feel moderately intense, but somewhat like coasting. Like I'm going to the gym, I'm getting kind of a workout, but I leave and I have a lot of energy and I feel good. 10% of the time you're sprinting. 10% of the time you're going in and you're getting after it. And you want to time those for when you're rested, got good nutrition. I haven't worked out really hard in a little while. I think for the next few weeks, I'm going to kind of chase some gains. I'm going to chase that progress with my VO2 max, with my stamina. And I say that because people have it flipped. It's like 90% of the time they try to beat themselves up. 10% of the time they rest because they're forced to. So there's that. Strength training, traditional. You do a set, you rest, you do a set, you rest. Strength training is to build strength and muscle. Use that tool for what it's best used for. You have a hammer, use it like a hammer. That's how you do strength training. Cardio, at the top is just move. So I don't care what it is. I like walking. Most people can walk without terrible biomechanics. Walking is convenient. You don't got to change into workout clothes. Go do your thing. You'll get great benefits from it. So walk daily, monitor your steps. 8,000 steps seems to be where you get a majority of the benefits.
Walking is the GOAT. It doesn't impact recovery. Doesn't build hunger.
It's it rejuvenates the body. You're right, recuperative. It's appropriate for everybody, for most people. If you want stamina and endurance, and you really want to push that, this is when you get into the harder bouts of cardio. If it's appropriate for you, if you're not in this overstressed state, you don't have lots of pain, pick a form of cardio where your biomechanics are good, and then challenge yourself with bouts of 20 to 30 second sprints, interrupted by periods of allowing your heart rate to come down, and repeat that 3 or 4 times. Assault bike or bike seems to work best for most people. Doesn't require a lot of biomechanics or technique. Running is great if you can run. Most people can't run. You take the average person, you have them run hard, and they're going to hurt themselves because they just don't have good technique. So I like the bike for that. You can get on there, and you're probably not going to mess it up. But again, it needs to be appropriate. Most people, I'd say typical average person, super intense bouts of cardio tends to fry them, and it takes away from their ability to perform the strength training. So it's like we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and the strength training is where I like people spend most of their energy. And then, basic compound lifts and practice them.
Yeah.
You can't get away. They're the best.
You ever in gyms see, I guess, like for lack of a better way to describe them, I would refer to them as like arm bicycles for people that struggle with their lower bodies. Yeah. A means of doing cardio with your arms.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. You're not going to get as much of the cardiovascular, smaller muscle groups.
Yeah.
If you want stamina in your upper body, stamina in your shoulders, go for it. Those were originally developed for people who, couldn't walk. I could see some benefit for certain types of athletes that need upper body, like strength stamina in the upper body. If you find it fun, like go for it. But doing one of those is not going to work your stamina like working your legs well.
Yeah,
on a bike.
Just bigger muscles.
It's just much bigger muscles, much larger oxygen demand
on your cardiovascular system.
But yeah, it's you're going to see a lot of stuff when it comes to workouts. And most people judge the effectiveness of the workout by how hard it feels, which really is not a good judge. I mean, I could get anybody exhausted with jumping jacks. It's not really a great way to judge the efficacy of your workout. So people are like, well, how do I judge the efficacy of my workout? Are you getting stronger? Do you feel better? Are you getting better sleep? It should improve the quality of your life. It should not feel like it's reducing the quality of your life where you're like exhausted oh my God, that beat me up. I can't move. My body hurts. The best investment somebody could make in regards to workouts is working with a really good trainer. It's the best thing you could do. I mean, you work with a really good trainer for 6 months, you're going to have a pretty good base of what to do, how to do it right, and how to work my body properly.
How does one assess whether or not a trainer is good or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had somebody ask me that question yesterday. The last year and a half, Mind Pump has invested heavily in personal trainers and coaches, precisely because we think it's really important. From our standpoint, it's a lot of work and energy, but there's definitely a need for it. There's a lot of trainers. There's not a lot of really good trainers. So how do you know? Experience is more valuable than education. Both valuable, but experience is more valuable. Typically, a trainer who's been a full-time trainer for a decade, they're typically good. They're typically okay. They've lasted that long. They've probably worked with a lot of people. They've gone through their phase of beating people up. Every trainer starts there for the first couple of years. I'm going to beat every client up. And they've really started to figure out, like, okay, this is how I help people. If you meet with a trainer and they don't do like an assessment where they assess your movement, they assess biomechanics, that's a red flag. So if you meet with a trainer first time and you go right into a workout, big red flag. If you feel better at the end of your workout than you did before you started, that's great. If you feel worse, what I mean by that is like you're crawling out of the gym and you can't walk, that's a red flag. You should feel, and this is the coaching side of it. If you're working with a trainer and you mess up on your diet or something like that and you want to hide it from your trainer, that's not good. Your trainer should be somebody that you're the first person you go to when you're struggling with those things. You should feel that they extend grace to you. This should be somebody that you want to hang out with. So if you're working with a trainer twice a week for 6 months or 6 years, I mean, I had clients that were with me for 9 years. This should be somebody you look forward to seeing, whether you're in a good mood, a bad mood, tired, or whatever. That's a very important component to good coaching is I want to see this person. And then do they apply exercise in a way that where they can modify it based off of how you feel in your life? So I'm tired today, workout looks different. Ooh, I see you moving differently today. Here's some correctional exercise. Let's work on that. I notice your shoulder hurts. Let's try something to help it feel better. So they can use exercise as a way to, like medicine. But that's really, really good. But experience, I would say the best. I mean, my aunt just, I talked to her last week. She's looking for a good trainer up where she's located. And she's asking me, like, what should I look for? And I told her, I said, find a trainer that's experienced with training people like you. Someone who's been doing this for a while. It's not perfect, but it's one of the best gauges, I would say.
Do you think people are best off having a trainer of their own sex?
That's a great question. I would say if you're a middle-aged woman with kids and hiring a middle-aged woman who's also had kids, it's more likely she's going to understand how you feel and the challenges of your life. You hire a 20-year-old dude, he's more likely, and this isn't 100%. There's great trainers out there, but he's more likely to look at your challenges and just think you're not as disciplined as you should be, or just make the time, or when you make the time, you have more time, and everybody has the same 24 hours, and you hear these stupid arguments with real life challenges. So she's more likely to kind of connect with some of your challenges. Is it perfect? No. I think experience is great. You find a male trainer who's worked with a lot of people like you, he's going to be pretty good. And I wouldn't trade like their gender for someone who's giving me a really good experience. But I do think that there's something there. And I would have argued against that had you asked me in the first 5 years I was personal training. But now with my experience, I would say it makes a difference. But really good coaches are coached to understand this. We have, like I said, we have trainers that work for us, and this is how we coach and train them. And it's like, yeah, you're 20-something years old, you have this experience with life. These people, these are real challenges. When someone comes to you and says, man, it's really hard for me to find time, don't automatically think that they're just being lazy or they just didn't make the time. It's totally different life experience. When a woman who's going through perimenopause comes up to you and says, I'm doing all the same stuff I used to do, and now I've got like this belly fat. Don't just think to yourself like, you're just not in a calorie deficit. It's in your head, because you'll hear this. Doctors sometimes, in fact, will say that.
Wow.
So, kind of believe their experience and then take it from there. Even if they're wrong, connecting with them and building trust with them is going to make you a more effective coach anyway.
Wow. Amazing answer. And circling back to the whole confusion in the online discourse, I think it's worth pointing out, curious to know your thoughts, but from my vantage point, a lot of the confusion stems from social media itself, the algorithms of social media itself, not necessarily our scientific apparatus. Like a lot of the arguing that you'll see on social media tends to be in the margins and tends to be honestly stoked by, people on social media who are just chasing clout by being contrarian to what the consensus may be.
You're right. And also, let's face it, our space, my space in particular, is dominated by people who don't have a healthy relationship with exercise. I struggle with my relationship to exercise. My saving grace has been I've trained people for so long that my lens is a little bit more clear. But if I just train myself, Max, the way I would communicate fitness would be very distorted. It'd be based off of my own obsession, body obsession or whatever that that I've struggled with. So you have a lot of that. The best online voices for fitness and nutrition are people with an educational background, but also with a lot of experience training everyday people. So like Brett Contreras is a good example. He's the guy that helps people build butts or whatever. Joe DeFranco, another guy. Like they're great education, great background, but they've trained people for a long time. And when you listen to them communicate, you can tell like, they've actually worked with a lot of people. Oftentimes what you'll hear or what you'll get information from is either the science person, like all they know is the data and the science, which is great, but they're missing a big piece, which is like, well, how does this really work in the real world? How do people really respond to this? Do they like this? What are people's experiences with this? So they miss that. So they're just like data, which often misses the mark. Or you have these ultra shredded, beautiful, body dysmorphic people who are communicating through that lens. And so it's a lot of the beast mode, no days off, food is fuel, make it happen, 6 months postpartum, look at me, I'm shredded, which is like, that's right now, that's like a special area of annoyance for me is this postpartum fitness communication. Like I've worked with enough women who've had children, and I'm going to just say it here. You don't fully 100% feel like yourself for about 2 years after you have a kid. Like you'll get fit and, before that and whatever. It takes about 2 years before you're like, okay, I'm back. I'm 100% back. The information that women get from these other influencers about, after having a kid, it's like, after 6 months. No, it takes longer. Takes much longer before you start to go, okay, I think I'm 100% back to how I used to feel. And we need to just be honest about that, because these poor women, I get messages all the time, like, I'm doing all the stuff, 9 months postpartum, what's going on? I'm like, it takes longer. It takes longer.
I'm sure. I can't even imagine. God bless women and what they go through, right? Man. Okay, next question comes to us from KK Holly 13. She asked her question was, what are the top 3 supplements for someone in their 30s and generally good health?
Oh, that's great. I love multivitamin's great. A good multivitamin just fills those nutrition gaps. What we're finding a lot now is that a lot of people aren't necessarily deficient, although that's more common than you think, in certain nutrients like vitamin D, magnesium, zinc sometimes. It's a significant percentage, not a majority, but significant. But what we're finding now is you can not be deficient but not be optimal. So you see all the studies with like vitamin D, for example, how people tend to benefit even though they're not deficient. So a multivitamin, they're inexpensive, get a good one. I would say that's number one. Filling a nutrient deficiency is life-changing. So if you are deficient in like magnesium, taking magnesium can suddenly feel like you don't have anxiety anymore and you can sleep. Being deficient in vitamin D and supplementing with that is like, I don't have pain anymore. My God, my libido's back, right? Next, I would say creatine. Creatine is this incredible longevity supplement. It's across every study that comes out on creatine. It's one of the most studied supplements. There's thousands of peer-reviewed studies on creatine. Every time they come out with a new one, it's like there's a new benefit. It's like it's antidepressant, anti-anxiety. There's now data that is suggesting, so it's not conclusive, that it may have some anti-cancer effects. It's good for the brain. We know it's good for muscle, good for bone, seems to be good for your organs. So I'd say creatine for everybody across the board. And we're probably a decade away from them being like, if you're over 50, you have to take creatine. And then the next one, that's a toss-up. I like high EPA fish oil for some people. I like protein supplements for people who have trouble hitting their protein targets. There's not a lot of supplements, though, that I would be like, yes, you have to take this. I'd actually love to know your opinion on this, because I know you're really good at diving into the research and having a good opinion on this.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that creatine seems to be almost like, you could almost make like a universal recommendation at this point. Every new creatine study that I see coming out is actually not about physical performance, its ergogenic effects. Like all the new research on creatine, it's like it's all looking at its effects on the brain and these other health outcomes, like as you mentioned, cancer. Like there have been a number of studies that I've found to be fascinating looking at dietary creatine intake. So not even not like disregarding creatine as a supplement, like how much creatine somebody's naturally getting in their diets from sources like red meat and fish. And they're finding all kinds of positive health outcomes associated with that, which runs completely counter to the narrative that animal source foods are bad, because creatine's found exclusively, of course, in animal source foods. So you're seeing like higher levels of dietary creatine being linked to reduced, was it cancer mortality? Or something like that. It was like a cancer related health outcome. And I'm like, well, haven't we been told for decades at this point that red meat, like eating too much animal protein causes cancer? It's not what this observational data is suggesting. So that to me is super interesting. Its impact on the brain, particularly for older adults, I think is
sleep deprivation.
Sleep deprivation.
Wild.
Yeah, supporting a stressed brain is how that seems to work. And then of course with in the context of neurodegeneration, I mean it's super exciting stuff. There was that pilot study published a couple months ago, if not a year ago at this point, that found that high dose creatine improved cognition for sufferers with Alzheimer's disease. Now, it was a small study. It was a pilot trial. There was no placebo group. But all that being said, like the tools in the toolkit to treat conditions like Alzheimer's disease are so limited that if there's a compound that's as cheap and as widely available and as safe as creatine that might play some kind of therapeutic role, like that's awesome.
I love. I've been praising creatine for over a decade, and I mean, it makes sense, right? You're providing your body with more cellular energy, so it makes a lot of sense that it would have these kind of far-reaching benefits. But I'm even blown away by all this data that's coming out on all these other health parameters. For athletic performance, we've known it's been great for a long time. It's good for skin. It's great for skin as well. I love saying that because women there's still this myth around creatine, like, oh, it makes you bloated, or I'm heavier, which you might gain a couple pounds of water, but it's really intracellular, like intramuscular, so you actually look more toned. But it's great for your skin as well. So and you're putting it in skin products.
Skin. It's I mean, skin is, I think, like we sometimes forget the role of diet in skin appearance and skin health, but it's one of our largest organs. I think it's debatable which is the actual the largest organ, but
I got one for you. Probiotics are really fascinating me. With some of the studies on probiotics are really interesting. I've seen some with their antidepressant, anti-anxiety effects, and I've recently been looking at studies and showing performance-enhancing effects. So helping with recovery and stamina and endurance. We know the gut health benefits of probiotics. So that I would say is up there. The thing with probiotics though is there's such a range of like good products to ones that aren't that great. So find a good one. We're sponsored by a company called Seed, and I've just had the best response with them, and we've had great. Our consumers are been writing back for years now, saying how much they like it. But probiotics, I would say, are up there.
Very interesting. I'll throw in astaxanthin, which is one of my personal favorite supplements. It's a compound naturally found in fatty fish like salmon. Well, salmon in particular. It's what gives salmon its characteristic red hue. It's also found in certain crustaceans, but it's a carotenoid, so it's related to compounds like lutein and zeaxanthin and beta carotene and lycopene. These are compounds that we know have broad-reaching health benefits on the body. Lutein and zeaxanthin, well-established eye health benefits, well-established brain health benefits at this point. Astaxanthin is this carotenoid that has been spotlighted as one of nature's most potent antioxidants. And the way that it integrates into cellular membranes is really unique. It spans the phospholipid bilayer, so it basically protects the cell from the inside out. And there are hundreds of studies now looking at astaxanthin with regards to skin health, with regards to, even rheumatoid arthritis, inflammation, blood lipids.
Krill oil has it in there, right?
Krill oil has a small amount of it, And notably, I'm affiliated with a company called AX3, but I became affiliated with them just because for so many years I was such a big fan of astaxanthin. Notably, astaxanthin is one of the few, if not the only supplement compound that was shown in the NIH's own interventions testing program to extend mammalian life by 10%.
Oh, wow.
With no negative side effects.
Oh, wow.
So other compounds have been shown to do that, like rapamycin and whatever, but they have potential side effects. Like they can increase, insulin resistance and stuff like that. Whereas astaxanthin was found to be totally safe. And in male mice specifically, a 10% improvement in lifespan. Wow. We don't know in humans if that's the case, but we know that men tend to live shorter lives.
Anyway. What's interesting too about supplements is you could take stuff and not necessarily feel it. I think that a lot of people are challenged with that, right? Is it doing anything? That's another reason why I like creatine. Just go back to that. You'll know. You'll take it and you'll be stronger. You'll add 2 reps to every lift, 5 pounds to every lift. Multivitamin, if you're deficient, you'll know. But oftentimes you take one is it doing anything? And so I could see why that's a challenge for some people. Am I really getting any benefit from taking this particular supplement? Longevity supplements can be difficult, right? Is this really making a difference? I can't tell.
And you don't want to take a kitchen sink approach. You don't want to take everything. We don't have budgets for that. It can be, it begins to get crazy after a while. You're taking so many pills over the course of the day. So I'm interested in all of them, but the ride or die for me has been for years astaxanthin at this point.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you seen what the third-party tests and stuff on buying supplements from Amazon?
Shady, right?
So many counterfeits. Literally these companies will make an exact replica of a reputable brand and sell it, and you don't know, which is wild. I'm hearing more and more from supplement manufacturers don't buy any supplements off of Amazon. It's really hard for them to control what's real and what isn't.
It's a big problem. That's why you want to buy primarily, if you have the opportunity to buy directly from the manufacturer, from their website.
Yeah,
that makes a ton of sense. This is a great question. So this comes from L_Archie. I hate lifting weights, but I'm a lifelong exerciser. What to do for somebody who hates lifting weights?
Yeah, you don't have to do a lot of it if you want the benefits of it. When someone tells me they hate lifting weights, I'll tell them to do 3 lifts once a week, 3 big compound lifts once a week, and you're going to get a lot of the strength benefits and the protective benefits of strength training. I never like telling people you have to do this optimal thing or this optimal amount even though you hate it. It just doesn't work. And again, this is where my experience comes in as a personal trainer. I'm not going to force you to do the best thing if you hate it, because you're not going to do it. So someone says to me, what's the best form of cardio? I typically respond with, what do you like doing the most? Let's do that. There could be a better form, but you're not going to do it. So if you hate strength training, 3 lifts a week is enough. That's enough for the protective effects. There's great studies. There's some great studies on strength training on how much you need to just not have muscle and strength loss. Do you know how much you need? It's once every 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
It's very little is required just to not lose muscle, okay? So if you did 3 lifts a week, would you get stronger? You would. Would you build some muscle? You would. Would you have some protective effects from it? Yes, you would. Just make sure it's traditional strength training. Sometimes when people hate strength training, they turn it into cardio. So they'll say, okay, I love I love my cardio class. We're lifting dumbbells, so that counts. Not really. It's got to be, you need to do a set, rest, do the set and rest. And the rest isn't because you need the rest. In fact, it's the rest period that makes strength training. It's not the weights.
What do you mean by that?
So again, I can use weights in a way, like I could do it in like a Zumba class. And it doesn't matter if I'm holding dumbbells, it's still cardio. Strength training, what you're tapping into is an energy. You're trying to burn an energy source that you're trying to work with ATP primarily. That's what sends a signal to build strength. Once you go past that, now you're sending a signal to build endurance, which is fine if that's what you're looking for. But if you want the benefits of strength training, strength, muscle, stick to the signal that says get stronger. And so what that typically looks like is a moderately intense to intense set of, let's say, 8 to 12 reps, and then wait about 60 at the least to as long as 3 minutes. And you're not resting because you need it. Because what happens with a lot of like cardio junkies who have lots of stamina is they'll do a set, they'll wait 20 seconds, like I can go again. No, you need to replenish ATP. That's what sends the muscle signal. So it's going to feel kind of boring. To those people, when I was training clients like that, and I had a few of those, I got really good at conversation because I had to distract them in between sets. Because they literally sit there for 15 seconds and they're like, all right, let's go. Like, no, we got another 2 minutes. And so they'd be, so I got really good at just like entertaining them.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So it's going to feel kind of boring, but 3 lifts once a week, you're done. You get all the benefits. You're doing great. If you want to do 1 lift 3 days a week instead of doing it all at once, then you can do that as well.
Now, when it comes to stimulating the muscle most efficiently, is it true, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is an area where I've been somewhat confused as well, that the necessity for time under tension has kind of been devalued, whereas mechanical tension seems to be what's most important? Am I getting the vernacular right there?
Yeah. Generally speaking, so time under tension would support like this really slow, controlled reps. Mechanical tension is like how hard is the force. So an explosive rep can also create a lot of mechanical tension, but you're moving quickly. Okay. Why do I recommend slow, controlled reps though? It's safer, period. A barbell squat requires a lot of skill and a lot of technique to perform with slow, controlled reps. You move that fast, you've just dramatically increased the skill required. Essentially, your risk of injury has gone through the roof because the skill now has to be perfect. Moving fast requires much better technique than moving slow. So slow and controlled is how you want to perform your strength training if you don't want to hurt yourself and you want to keep things safe. Rep ranges, there's this big debate around rep ranges. Any rep range, the rep range between 1 to like 30, all build muscle if they're done with sufficient intensity. Does that mean they're all the same? No. There's still different physical expressions of that adaptation. If I get really good at lifting weights for 3 reps, that's what my strength is going to look like. If I get really good at lifting weights for 25 reps, that's what my strength is going to look like. Do they both build similar amounts of muscle? They do. But, I hate it when the information all gets boiled down to the aesthetic. Okay, well, what builds muscle? That's all that matters. Well, that's not all that matters. Like, I also want to move well. I want to have strength that translates into the real world. I want to do what I enjoy. So we recommend training in all of the different rep range. Like you get really good at 3 reps, go do a set of 20 reps and suddenly your fitness is out the window, okay? Or you get really good at 20 reps, you do the heavy, low grinding, high weight, grinding sets and suddenly your technique isn't so great. So all of them are great. Work within all of them. And they're all going to build muscle. They're all going to give you the look you're looking for.
But it's not necessarily the time, like more reps is good from an injury prevention standpoint, from learning the proper form and technique, but it's not necessarily the time under tension that is creating the stimulus. It's making sure that however many reps you're doing, taking that set to a sufficient level of intensity to or near failure.
Yeah, so really, really heavy weight, your body is calling upon most of the muscle fibers because you can't lift the weight. When it's light, in those first 5 reps, your body's not calling upon all your muscle fibers because you can move them. But as those fatigue, it's calling more muscle fibers. Once you get close to failure, you're now activating all the muscle fibers. And this is why the data shows similar amounts of muscle, whether it's really heavy or lighter. If they're both intense, they're both going to produce similar amounts of muscle growth as far as the data is concerned. Now, I'll argue this. This is, again, from experience. You plan on strength training for longer than 16 weeks, 24 weeks. You want to do this for years. Your body gets pretty adapted to a rep range. And I've seen this time and time again. You talk to any strength coach or anyone who's been training people for more than 10 years. I'll get your body to produce visible results if we just move out of that rep range. The guy that's good at the 3 reps, let's do 3 months at 15 reps, and suddenly you see, great results again. More commonly, it's the female client who sticks around 25 reps, and I get her to do the 3-4 rep sets, and suddenly she gets these great results. So there's also the novelty effect when it comes to strength training.
Clarifying. Wow, thanks so much for that. Super interesting stuff. Okay, so the next question comes from Kayla Bellinger 24. Oh, this is an interesting one. How does one navigate building and cutting after eating disorder recovery? So transitioning from that to, cycles of building and cutting.
Yeah, that's a great question. All right, so taking someone, I've worked with quite a few people with body dysmorphia or people who've had bulimia, anorexia, worked with quite a few. And what we want to do is, I don't like having those people hyper-focus on calories and macros. It's just becomes stressful or it spins them out. You could go from anorexia to orthorexia. That's actually quite common. Like, I don't starve myself anymore, but now I make sure I hit every perfect gram of protein, fat, and carb, and it's just equally as stressful and takes away from the quality of life. I like to tell those people to focus on performance. Performance isn't perfect, but it's better. So it's like focus on strength, focus on mobility, focus on stamina, because it's hard to progress in those areas while underfeeding yourself. So if I'm not eating enough, I'm probably not going to get stronger. I'm probably going to suffer performance-wise. So performance is a better North Star. So I'd say start there. Then I would try to recalibrate your relationship to food. If you have a history of under-eating, it's telling you to listen to your body is not a good idea. I know that sounds crazy, but you tell someone to listen to their body who's used to under-eating, and they'll undereat. To them, eating a sufficient amount of food feels not good. It's like I feel like I'm eating too much, okay? So with that person, I'm going to say focus on performance and try to hit protein targets would be about as detailed as I would get, and try not to avoid too many foods and eat regularly. And then start paying attention to how you feel, energy-wise, performance-wise, sleep-wise. Try not to study yourself in the mirror. Definitely don't weigh yourself. That'll spin you out. And then over time, you'll start to kind of change your relationship to the food. It'll be more like, wow, I feel good. I feel energized. I'm strong versus, I'm looking at myself in the mirror from this angle and this doesn't look right, which is super subjective. Or, I built some muscle, but the scale went up 3 pounds. It ruined my life. So now I'm going to cut way back. Working with a coach can be really beneficial here. Someone who has experience working with people in the situation. So you can outsource this. So you can say, we have clients like this where they're recovering and they're like, oh man, I feel like I'm stuffed, but I trust you. So I'm just going to do what you tell me, because they have to relearn how to listen to their body. My personal challenges were the opposite. I used to overfeed myself all the time to try and get bigger. So when I would eat appropriate, it felt like I wasn't eating enough, but I just got so used to the feeling of stuffing my face.
You ever see that? There's a documentary on, I think it's Amazon Prime, Bigorexia.
Yeah.
Was that you?
No. Well, pretty close. Listen, I would say I probably fell into that category with that obsessive, like I need to get bigger, and force feed myself and wake up in the middle of the night, take a protein shake and blending chicken breasts and tuna fish to, definitely.
Wow.
Definitely.
You would like set an alarm, wake up in the middle of the night to eat?
Oh yeah. I would blend chicken breasts and tuna fish in a blender. I would
drink it?
Yeah, I would do a lot of crazy stuff. And the saving grace was training clients, Max. It didn't like really 100% save me, but I really could care about other people differently. And so I would hear my advice to them and how counter it was to how I was treating myself. And so that kept me within, some guardrails a little bit. If I didn't do that, I would have spun out, and I did a couple times. I did a little bit spin out, with like in my 20s with, hormone abuse and that kind of stuff. So I get it, by the way. I get it when I work with, or we talk to people on the show who've had these challenges. I'm like, look, I totally get it. This is real hard. I can still struggle with this. We just have to change the relationship with these things.
Wow, that is so interesting. I wonder where that comes from. Like,
oh God. It typically comes from wanting a sense of control. It can start with body dysmorphia. I'm not thin enough, or I'm not big enough, or I need to feel secure or stronger. Then you start to get confirmation from people around you. Oh, you're doing great. Now suddenly you feel good about it. It can come from a lot of different areas. I think as people get older, when they're younger, it tends to be body image. As they get older, it becomes a control thing. I'm stressed. This is the one thing I can control, so I'm going to wrap my hands around it. And it can be really hard. It can be really hard to break, especially if on the outside you look fit. So we've talked about this many times on your show, but the percentage of people in the fitness industry that have body dysmorphia is like way higher. Than
huge,
Yeah, it's like a majority. 100%. And a good coach will be able to work with this if they're honest about it, for sure. But if you get the one that's like deep in it, they're gonna just push you in that direction.
Like a coach that might be able to recognize their own unhealthy patterns in themselves and be able to transcend that for the sake of the client.
Totally.
Even while it's still there.
Totally. You know what's good sometimes for people with passive eating disorders where they were, either anorexic or bulimic, the sport of powerlifting.
Interesting.
It's so strength focused, so not how I look focused. It's not body image focused. It's like, how much weight can you lift? And I've had a number of women go into that space, not like they're going to be the best in the world, but just like it gives them this target. And they come out with so much of a better relationship with their body because it was really just about how much weight they could lift. And they started to feed themselves according to their performance rather than how they looked. And the powerlifting world could care less about what you look like. It's like, how much can you lift? Nobody's going to say you look fit. Nobody cares. And it's been a place that I've pointed quite a few women, and they've come out with a better relationship.
Wow.
Bodybuilding, the worst. Bikini competition, the worst. Yeah, you're going to go on stage and get judged on how you look. Like,
sounds awful.
You want to come out with a worse eating disorder? Go do bodybuilding.
Yeah, I mean, power to those who do it. I mean, I admire the practice, the sport, but yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like a tough deal. Like, what are you trading in order to get to that level?
It's the healthiest people are unhealthy. You have to be unhealthy physically unhealthy to go on stage. You're depleted, you're shredded beyond what's good for you, you're overtrained. They call them the walking dead. So you're on stage and you feel like garbage, but you're presenting this physique. And then the drugs involved typically are terrible. So like Adam competed at the highest level. He became a pro as a physique competitor, which is like bodybuilding light, I would say. But he did it in his 30s, and he'll tell you now, if he did it in his 20s, it would have spun him out.
Wow.
But by that point, he was a little healthier. He'd been training people, and so he was able to be a little bit more objective. You're going on stage and you look great, and your judge, the judges are telling you, you got it. This right here isn't sharp enough, and you're like 4% body fat. And they're like, yeah, you're holding body fat in your lower abs, and your lower back's a little puffy, and your calves aren't as big. Like, that's not good for you, dude.
No, definitely not. Is that the category where they let you wear board shorts?
That's board shorts.
Board shorts.
Yeah.
Why do they let you wear it? Why are they less concerned about like legs?
No, they were trying to make a more appealing sport.
Interesting.
So bodybuilding got so extreme that they created physique because they wanted more mainstream money and stuff. And it worked for a second, but physique's gone crazy now too. Those guys look ridiculous now too.
Crazy.
Yeah, so they're just, they're trying to attract more. Because pro bodybuilding's they look like mutants. It's just crazy looking.
Wow. Well, I have a question for you, Sal.
Yeah.
This is a homegrown Max Lugavere original. If you could only pick and perform 5 exercises for the rest of your life, what would they be?
So some kind of a squat would be there. It's just so beneficial. It's functional. It could be a split stance squat or bilateral squat. So some kind of a squat, some kind of a row, obviously for the back, but you want to also strengthen this kind of shoulders back position. And that's just because our lifestyle is so in front of us. We're so sedentary. So it's really good for that kind of thoracic stability. So some kind of a row, some kind of a standing overhead press, some kind of a horizontal press.
Why standing for the overhead press?
So you want to be grounded with your overhead strength. You're going to get core stability. You're going to get that strength transfer that is functional in the real world. If you ever lift something overhead, you're typically standing. You're not seated, and that does make a difference.
Interesting.
There's more thoracic stability. There's more core stability involved versus sitting on a back supported bench, with the shoulder press. So standing is just, if I have to pick, I'm going to pick standing.
What should your leg position? What should your stance be when you're doing an overhead press?
You're going to have your feet about shoulder width apart.
Okay.
Yeah. So
knees bent or straight or
they're not locked, but they're strong. Yeah, they're strong. So we're not talking about a push press. We're talking about strict overhead press. So we have our row, squat, overhead press, some kind of a horizontal press. So it could be like a bench press or an incline press. I like better. And then something with lateral and rotation involved. I like the windmill. So all those compound lifts are really good in what's called the sagittal plane, but you don't have good lateral strength development from them. So lateral sled jags are really good. Cossack squats or side lunges are good. But then, of course, we want rotation. So the windmill kind of gives you a little bit of both. So you're bending forward, bending down, you're rotating, you're getting the trunk, you're getting the core. There's a little bit of lateral stability. You're limiting me to 5, so if I had to pick, I would pick a windmill.
A windmill. Do you do isolation, like core work? Do you do like abs?
If I could add an exercise, yeah, perfect sit up. It's a great exercise. It's like literally you're laying flat and you slowly roll your body up into a sit up and slowly come down, so you get that lumbar flexion. Love that. I love physio ball crunches if done properly. Active planks are really good as well. If I could add other exercises, it would be like wood chops would be good for that rotation. Like I said, the lateral sled drags I really like for lateral stability. You've got all your bases covered. When you do those.
Very interesting. Sal Di Stefano. Love when you come out, brother.
Thanks, man.
So fun.
Always.
Let my listeners know where they can find you on social media, how they can support your work. And I know you've got all kinds of programs with your boys at Mind Pump. Shout out to Adam, Justin, and Doug, who couldn't be here today. But yeah, how can listeners connect with you?
Mind Pump. You can find us anywhere. You'll find media, so YouTube, social media, podcasts. Just look up Mind Pump. That's a podcast. And then we have digital fitness programs. And now we've dived into online coaching and in-person personal training. So if you're interested.
I love it. Something that I've long said, and which has become even more apparent to me over the past couple of months, seeing just like the vitriol and the polarization in almost every vertical of discourse today, but particularly in nutrition and fitness. Like, I have so few heroes in the space. I can count on one hand, like the heroes that I have in our space, but you guys are among them.
Oh, thanks.
Like, yeah, you guys are, I think, like when people ask me like what other podcasts I listen to, I'm like, well, I don't really listen to many others, but if I did, it would certainly be Mind Pump because those guys are so well intentioned. And yeah, just thank you for continuing to put out really good, high vibration, well-intentioned, science-based, but not science-bound content. Like, you're not religiously, dogmatically tethered to the scientific data. You guys are like real people.
Yeah,
I so appreciate that.
No, I appreciate that, Max. We love you. I think you do a phenomenal job. You do such a good job of navigating the data, and you're so balanced with your approach when you need to be and when you don't need to be. You're very good with, no, this is what the data shows, which boy, does the media space need that, because it can be so polarized, so confusing. I really feel for people who are trying to improve their health and their fitness, and they don't know a lot, and so they go to YouTube, and it's like, what do I listen to? What's right? And so I think you do a good job with that.
The algorithms today, I feel like, reward primarily rage bait. That's why it's all you see.
Yeah.
It's like reaction slop, reels, and rage bait and contrarian takes and negativity, and it's such a different landscape than I feel like it was when you and I both got started. And yeah, I appreciate that you guys haven't pivoted away from that towards the dark side, so to speak.
You know, what's helped us is we trained people for a long time before we started the podcast. So we were all trainers for years, managed gyms, and thankfully that lens we've been able to continue looking at things through that lens. And so I only communicate things if I think they're going to help someone. Even if the study says do this thing, if I know like this is going to confuse people, let's not focus on that. And thankfully it's blessed us. You know, we're now a decade in and we've been able to continue to do really well. I'll give you an example. We've never used before and afters to sell anything. We have lots of before and afters, Max. People send them all the time. And it would make us a lot more money. It's like the most guaranteed way to sell anything in fitness is to show before and afters.
Wow.
But we never did because it's so body focused. And I know when I train clients, they would look at before and afters and come to me and be so confused. And why isn't this working? Look at this person in 60 days. So we've just always refused. So that's just one example. And we've probably lost money, but also we've stuck around because, you know, we've kind of tried to point in that direction. So hopefully it continues to work.
Yeah, it's working. It's being received. Thanks again. Thanks
Appreciate
for coming out. Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Share this episode with friends and loved ones that may benefit from it. And if you appreciated this episode, leave a rating and review and let me know. Sending love, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.